Whether you're a teacher, a business owner, or even a pastor, you might right now be struggling to figure out how to shoot videos for your customers and students. In today's digital age with so much content out there, it can be a struggle to provide interesting videos that keep people captivated. So today, I'm going to give you 10 tips on how to shoot better video. Now you might be wondering, who am I? Who am I to provide 10 tips? Well, I'll tell you who I am. So for around 15 years, I was a TV reporter and anchor, and now more recently, I'm a vlogger. So I am going to provide you my 10 tips. I have my daughter Camille with me because she's going to be the model for a lot of this. I'm glad she's playing along. But our first tip is, first of all, how you hold your phone. So you might want to hold your phone like this, but only shoot video like this when you're doing an Instagram story or a Snapchat story. Otherwise, you want to hold it side to side. As they say, side to side, shoot it wide. That way it'll fill up the whole TV screen or the whole phone screen when people watch it this way. Now, you also might think that when you're watching a video, there's a ton of movement, but usually there is very little movement, and instead they're just sequencing different shots together. So you don't want to do a ton of movement, and with your shots, you want to make sure they're nice and steady. You can try as hard as you want to just hold it with your hands steady, but it is best to have some sort of tripod, and you can find a lot of cheap tripods these days online. I got mine from Amazon. I'll put a link down below in the description box to that product. I do like it. It's pretty short, but I do like it. And then while you're there, I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button and the bell to join this YouTube family. We do plan on doing more shooting and editing videos coming up. So if you want to do a little movement with your video, you can do pans and zooms. But the main thing to keep in mind is that you have to have a starting spot and an ending spot and know where you're going with it. You just don't want to zoom over your entire house like that. That makes people dizzy, right? So for movement, like I said, starting spot, hold it steady for a moment, and then go to your ending spot and hold it steady for a little bit. The same goes, with a zoom. If you want to start, I don't really do zooms, but if you want to start there, hold it steady, and then zoom in, hold it steady. Number 2 is to consider lighting. If your video looks more appealing, people will be more likely to watch it. If it's a nice day outside, you just might want to head outdoors. Lighting can be easiest there. Once outside, make sure whatever or whomever you're shooting is facing into the sun. This may make the person in the video squint a little, but it'll make a huge difference with lighting. If the squinting problem is too much, head into the shade. That can be the best. To have lighting in the early morning or the late afternoon, and then have a person go into the shade. You've probably heard of that time of day. It's called the golden hour. But, lighting over the noon hour can be just fine too, and that way people won't squint. If you're shooting your video inside, try to find some natural light, a window. Have the person or thing that you're shooting face toward the window. Never ever try to backlight them unless you're going for some special effect. Now, if you don't have large windows in your house or your business, you can invest in an LED light. I'll post links to some down below in the description box. The third tip is your background. Now, if you look at online videos, you will notice that a lot of people ignore their backgrounds or don't know what they're doing when it comes to backgrounds. I'll get Camille in to show you some examples. My daughter Evie also wanted to help out. So this is the shot that we chose in our house for our interview shot. Like I said before, you have a window right there, and so you have some good natural light coming in. You also have a lot of depth of field. You can see far away towards a fireplace. Now, so take a look at this shot, and I'll have the girls show some other examples of things you shouldn't do. You may feel like putting someone just up against a plain white wall, but that's a no-no. You just don't want like a plain blank wall and for someone to be right up against it. But here's also something you shouldn't do. You also don't want to just prop someone up right in front of a very busy background, because that can distract from what they're saying. And everyone needs to pay attention to what you're saying, right, Camille? That's the point of the video, right? We don't have a super busy background in our house, and so this is what I'm using to show you. But, you know, super busy backgrounds, and sometimes people invest in these backdrops that they think are going to be good, but instead they're just too busy. When finding a spot to video, you want to make sure there's depth of field, so plenty of room to see in the background, not just prop someone up against, you know, a backdrop. But if you've been paying attention to this video, you realize this isn't the best shot either, because there are windows over there, right? So the lighting is not the best, but you do want to make sure there's depth of field. I'll show you the interview shot that we landed on. Ignore the mess. I cleaned up the mess in the background shot, which brings me to another point. Make sure you know what is in the background. Of course, don't have anything embarrassing there, and you might need to do a little cleaning if you're like me. So this is the shot that we landed on, because you can see depth of field and all the windows are working appropriately. The fourth tip is your voice. When you're talking through a screen, it's more difficult to capture people's attention and keep it than if you're face to face. So you want to make sure you're speaking with plenty of energy. Of course, this doesn't mean yelling, right? Energy does not equal yelling. Instead, you want to take appropriate pauses, right? So you can add a little enthusiasm and interest by just pausing for a moment, appropriate pauses. You also want to vary your pitch, high and low. You're not interested in this. You always practice this stuff just when you're reading stories, don't you? And you also want to vary your volume. So maybe talk a little louder at some points and then talk a little quieter. And that will hopefully keep people more interested in what you're saying. The fifth thing is content. You want to have an idea of what you're going to say before you get on, so you just don't ramble, even though I do that enough anyways. But you know, you don't want to write it down word for word so you sound more conversational, but you do want to have like an idea of what you're going to say. So I just write down a few notes, a few talking points, of course, like what my 10 tips are going to be, right? And then when it comes to your content, you need to make sure it's relatable, because there's so much information out there. You have to make sure it's interesting, informing, and relatable. And if you don't catch someone in those first few seconds, those first couple sentences, they're gonna quickly watch something else. That means that you wanna focus heavily on those first few sentences and make sure you have a great title. Now, you don't wanna have clickbait, right? You wanna have a title that is exactly what it's going to be. We don't need any more clickbait out there, right? But yes, focus on providing information that's relevant and informative. The next step is audio. If people struggle to hear what you're saying, they're gonna turn you off. No one wants to struggle to hear something, right? And I feel kind of like a hypocrite about talking about this, because right now my microphone is not working properly. And as many of you know, right now it's hard to get new stuff in that is not necessary. So I will be getting a new microphone shortly. If you would like to know which microphone I am getting, I will post a link to it down below in the description box. But even if your microphone is not working well, or you don't have a microphone, there are some steps you can take to make sure your audio is the best it can be. Mainly, think about the background noise. It's a windy day outside right now, so I'm shooting primarily inside because the wind would provide background noise. And then also, you see I have these kids right here who I love dearly, but I do have to tell them sometimes, can you just be quiet for like 15 minutes so mommy can do this, right? Don't I do that? And I feel bad doing that, but it also teaches you guys to listen to me,
I do
right?
that at this sippy cup.
Yeah, yep.
I don't want it.
So I am going to show you a little bit though on how much a difference this microphone makes, even though it's a cheap one and it's not working right now. Camille, can you say to me A, B, C, D, E, F, G?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Okay, so now we'll try it with the microphone. So now, as you can see, I put the microphone on Camille, and the way I did it to hide the cord is we put it up under the shirt, right? It can be kind of weird, but you need to hide the microphone so it doesn't look like you have a tail. Okay, Camille, say A, B, C, D, F, G.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
E, F, G.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about interviews. And of course, during an interview, you normally wouldn't have someone eating, but she's being game right now, so I'm letting her eat some butter bread with a clown in there. But for your interview shot, you want to think about the rule of thirds. You don't want someone right in the middle. You want it to more be, you know, on the third. And of course, the person she's talking to would be right over here. On this side, it would not be over here because that would look weird. Camille, look right here for a second. See, obviously that's not a good look, right? So you want them to be looking over here. And then when it comes to headspace, you want enough headspace, but you don't want too much. So there we go. That's too much headspace. This would be not enough unless you're going for a special effect. Like you might see sometimes a shot like this, especially when someone has emotion. This is usually like a really close-up is when someone's having emotion. Like if you're crying about something, let's see her cry, Camille. If she's crying and she's really sad or she's super excited about something, you might use a tight shot like that. But otherwise, you would avoid that. You also want to be at the same height as the person you're interviewing. Right now, I'm on my knees. And sometimes you have to do that. Or, you know, if you have someone really tall you're interviewing, you probably want them to sit down so you don't have to be on your tippy toes so much. Because you don't want, you know, the camera to be like this, usually, unless you're going for some special effect. But usually you don't want to be looking up at someone, especially, you know, you may shoot up their nostril and nobody likes that, right? And you also don't want to be looking down on someone for an interview. You want to have it just at the right height. Once again, as I said, not in the center. Next up, sequences. So for a sequence, that's how you edit a video good together. You want to make sure you have a variety of shots. So let's say we're doing a story about Camille eating, right? Exciting. But if we're doing a story about Camille eating, we want to make sure we have stuff we can edit together. So hold your hand there with your food for a second, Camille. We'll get a few seconds of this. Okay, now move the hand up to your mouth. And then we'll get a few seconds of this. And then I'll do like some close-ups. Maybe I'll get a shot of her empty hand here. I'll get a tight shot of her eyes. I'll get a tight shot of her mouth. Okay, that might be kind of disgusting, huh? I don't know who's going to be interested in this video of you eating, but you know, just for an example, we'll get a shot of her hand once again over here. And we're getting tight shots, as you may notice. We also want to get some wide shots. So you want to get wide shots. You want to get medium shots. You want to get tight shots. So when you're shooting, always think wide, medium, tight.
open up. You OPN, bitch, you won't be BM. We should be closer than friends. If you OPN.
For my 9th tip, I'm gonna talk about shooting video that is not part of the interview. It's more like B-roll, what we call B-roll. So let's say I'm doing a story about Easter decor, which I did do. So if you wanna check that out, I'll post a link to it down below in the description box. But anyway, so we're shooting video of these bunnies. You know how before I said you always wanna be at the same height as your interview? Well, when it comes to B-roll, it can be fun to, look down on something to provide an aspect that people might not see, or look up on something. And sometimes that can be really cool, especially, if you're shooting a shot, for instance, here of some buds coming on a tree. If you're looking at a different angle, it can provide some different interest in it. So yes, when you're shooting video, just general video, play along with different angles and see what angles might provide different interest. And then especially too, if you're just doing a story on these 3 bunnies, you're gonna have to get like a wide variety of different shots. So shoot from above, shoot tied up, as we talked about, wide, medium shot, tight shot, and then maybe shoot from down below. And for my 10th tip, I want to hear from you. What advice, what tips do you have for people shooting video? Please comment them down below. And while you're there, once again, I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're notified of future videos. And also let me know, do you want me to do some more videos like this, including ones now how to edit the video all together? I use a free thing on my iPhone called iMovie, so it's all free. I have barely spent any money to make my videos. I bought the cheap microphone, like I said, that's not working real well, and the cheap tripod, and I think that's the only money I've spent so far. So if you want to learn more about content like this, please subscribe, let me know. I would really appreciate it. And happy video making, everyone. Have a great day.